and I would really appreciate it if you would stop Rob Taylor from blathering on and on.
Opinions expressed by talk show hosts, callers, or guests on the Rob Taylor Report do not necessarily represent the opinions of the hosting platform, subsidiaries, sponsors, or possibly anyone else on the planet or the known universe. From the tinfoil and lead-lined broadcast bunker on the beautiful southern coast of Oregon, it's the Rob Taylor Report. So strap yourself in. Your weekly political therapy session is about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, the nearly famous Rob Taylor.
That's right, nearly famous Rob Taylor. And we're doing this for a second time. For some reason, it didn't go live the first time. And so I've got some really cool guests coming on. I got a couple of players that have been in the mix and doing a lot of work out in North Bend trying to stop that grant from going to the Devereux Center. And we're talking mostly about Adam Palmer here, but I want to first talk to Doug Washington, because Doug was checking out, or he did a video after the meeting on Monday, because there was a meeting Monday, which was a work session for the city of North Bend, and then on Tuesday, it was a regular meeting. So tell us what happened on Monday.
Well, I was out fishing, and I stopped fishing. I stopped fishing. I don't stop fishing for anything, whether night or day, nuclear holocaust, it doesn't matter. I go out and I fish. In fact, if there's a nuclear holocaust, there's no limits on fish. So I kind of edging towards that. So I'm out fishing. I stopped early so I can come to this meeting. I ran home. I had a shower. Now I have a shower once, twice a month, whether I need it or not. I threw an extra one in just so I would be clean and presentable when I went. I put on a clean shirt. I went into the meeting, a whole bunch of us were there. I looked like 50 to 100 people. I had my little clipboard, and I was excited to participate in a participatory representative democracy. I was excited, by golly, to get in there. And then David Johnson or Tara Milleron or whatever, they look the same, so I can't tell them apart. But anyway, the guy or gal in charge came up and said, hey, we have this little bylaw thing or whatever it is, the rules of engagement, whereby if there's all these people here and you all want to speak on the same topic and you all want to have your 3 minutes, we're not going to do that. We're going to appoint one of you, and we're going to give that one person 3 minutes to represent everybody. And at that point, I just had enough of that nonsense, and I left. I was just disgusted. I was disgusted, like I am disgusted about so much that goes on around here. Now, it sounds like there were some loud voices when I left. I heard a lot of dissent, public dissent, which is good. But I just went on my merry way, and I started recording a video just about how nasty and fetid this place is, and how they want to shore up the Devereux Center and give it more money to give it another go at the amazing job that they've done so far. Well, this amazing job, I took the people along on the live video and I said, hey, come on for a drive. Let's just go. Let's see the bums outside the Devereux. And we didn't get anybody defecating, but we got one guy urinating. We got other people flopped out. We had open air drug use like we do at the Devereux Center on a daily basis. And they want to flood millions of dollars into this failed model to move it somewhere else. Now, I have to say, if they move it from where it currently is, it benefits me. It benefits me more than it doesn't benefit me. But that doesn't make it right. Would I like to see it gone completely? Of course, that's the end game. We have homeless people. We have homeless people and we have bums. And it's predominantly the bums that I'm talking about that are standing out and defecating and open air drug use and stuff like that. And I just did this little video where I just drove around and showed all the decay and rot specifically around the Devereux Center. That place is the epicenter of everything bad and fetid that happens in that area. And what they're going to do is they've now contaminated, they've spread this disease. So they have this plague of crime and drug use and destitution. And they're going to pick it up because they've done such a good job here, and they're going to move it somewhere else and drop it off over here. And once again, but according to Tara Milleron, They're going to do such an amazing job at it this time. This is going to be different. They're going to have rules and regulations. They're going to do all this stuff. They're going to enforce the stuff that they don't enforce now. So it's like you take a kid and you give them a kitten and they kill the kitten. And then you go, here's another one. But you don't just give it a free kitten. You go get a pedigreed kitten. Like, little Jimmy likes to strangle cats. Okay, we're going to give you another one. We're going to keep trying that. And that's the failed model. So I'm going to call it the strangled kitten model that we're using for moving the Devereux Center to a new place.
And that sounds about right. I know, Adam, you were at the meeting. Kind of take us out after Doug Washington left. What happened during the meeting, and who was elected as the speaker for the group, or did other people actually get to chime in?
Well, other people actually did get to chime in. Of course, it wasn't everyone who wanted to, which emotions are so high right now. Everyone has something to say, whether it's constructive, deconstructive. There's just emotions on both sides. And I think a total of 4, maybe 5 people got to say things. Most of it was, again, very emotional. And I think a lot of people have a really hard time controlling their emotions and can't get articulate enough out. I mean, Chris Castleman was there, and, the guy is in my opinion, he has the right idea. I just think that his execution could use a little more of a soft touch. So he spoke. And again, what people are saying, yeah, it's true. Absolutely. I mean, everything that Mr. Doug Washington just said is 100% true. But, the main thing I thought is there's a lot of confusion. And, I was confused going into that thing, as I'm such a late player in this whole game. I've just been so busy, being a father, first of all, a business guy, trying to crawl out of this COVID mess. Hence why we've, gotten more debt to get the market now, which has been a blessing and a lot of fun, by the way. But, I just now started hearing about this stuff and was like, hey, what's going on? And so digging through, the columns of Facebook and newspaper articles and trying to reach out to city officials and getting all this information, I was under the assumption that North Bend had part of the grant and were voting on giving their part of the grant to Coos Bay, which is not at all what's been happening. And again, that's a lot of my fault, being buried in the sand, running businesses and employing people in town to, make Coos Bay. But, the biggest thing that I've taken away from all this is, again, not to throw anyone under the bus, because at the end of the day, we're all living here, including the homeless. And would I like them to go away? Yeah, absolutely. Nobody, I mean, some people want to be homeless, but nobody wants homeless. I mean, we all want somewhere to belong, whether that's in John Toppett's part, and that's fine as long as they clean up, don't bother people. And, again, we all are American here. And so I guess that the biggest thing I had to take away from that meeting is how uninformed I was. And, who can I blame that on? Well, myself. But at the same time, looking at the bylaws and what North Bend and Coos Bay City has to do to inform its citizens, there's not a lot. I mean, talking to people, and again, no matter what I say, I'm going to upset someone, whether that's a city council member or a manager or a lawyer. It doesn't matter. Someone's not going to like what I've had to say. And I've been door knocking, trying to get information, passing on information I've learned, and nobody knows what I'm even talking about. Oh, you mean they're moving over there? Oh, I heard that was going to happen. And it's like, how does nobody know what's going on? I mean, I'm a cook, and here I am in a week, suddenly leading this little mini movement, meeting with literally senators now, city council people, lawyers, CPAs, trying to figure all this out. And it's like, who am I to do this? It's crazy. So, can I blame it on people? Yeah. But I think what we really need to change is how we talk to the citizens and, how we portray the information. I mean, if you want to know what the city council's talking about and spending potentially $3.4 million on a project, you have to go to the Coos Bay City website. Then you have to find city council. Then you have to find the agenda. Then you have to find what day you want to learn about. Then you have to click on it and figure out what they're talking about. And then you have to get the night off to listen to it, if you can get in there, because it's standing room only sometimes. Sometimes there's 2 people in there. But, in the age of Facebook, I think my biggest complaint is, why do the city not have a Facebook just to say, hey, or, go around to different businesses? I mean, just today alone, I've passed out I think about 28 clipboards of different businesses. We already have 316 signatures on this thing, and 6 hours of me door knocking and going to different businesses. And who knows what, when I wake up tomorrow, how many other signatures we'll have. So, I mean, if I can do that and work 2 jobs and raise 3 kids under 5, where's the information? Download. And so I guess that's my biggest disconnect is, how can we change all this information? I mean, we got the Devereux on one side who doesn't want to move, from what I've gathered. I mean, if they move, because I've been watching all these city meetings and homeless advocate group meetings, if they move, they have to sign over, basically, hey, we'll do a better job, and if we don't do a better job, what's going to happen? Well, then the city has ultimate power. I mean, they can, it's their land. It's the city's land at this point. They can kick them off. And, the Devereux Center is like, oh, we'll raise the money. And this is what I'm getting. And this is a week of research, which is ridiculous. But this is what I'm getting talking to different, heads, different councils, different cities even. And they're afraid to give up what they have, because if they go over to Coos Bay and Inglewood, then the city says, well, you're not holding up your end of the deal. See you later. And now they have nowhere to go. Well, yeah, that sounds great to us. It's like, oh, great, no more homeless. Well, you're still going to have people living in John Toppitz. You're still going to have homeless, because we have a lot of people here that think they're doing a good thing by feeding them, and everything else. I mean, and the truth of it is, it's not just people who don't want to work. I mean, doing these interviews and door knocking, I've actually met a lot more homeless people than I thought I would. And I'll be honest about that. I know I'm sounding like a bleeding heart myself, but getting out there and really hitting it, it's like, holy mackerels. Like, yeah, there's definitely some horrible people. And I'm like, dude, this guy was just out here spreading garbage yesterday. But then, I met two people that were homeless that now rent in Inglewood, and they're like, well, I don't really want to sign that. And well, why? Because again, we do need both sides at the table. And again, it's hard to admit that, because it's like, well, I don't want any homeless, I don't want any government money, I don't want this. The truth of it is if we don't get government money from state, which is taxpayer money, then I don't know if you guys stayed or heard the rest of the North Bend City Council meeting, but one of the things that Paul Frazier and the sheriff out there said is that they're asking for a 5-year bond to open up more jail beds. So where does that come from? Property taxes. So now they want another bond to raise property taxes yet again. Well, it sounds great, but when does it stop? So these grants that we get could be a good thing, because if we don't get them, then we have to raise property taxes. I mean, though Governor Kotex right now is trying to raise property taxes across Oregon for more homeless centers. So it's a never-ending battle. And being so new to this, I mean, you guys have been on top of this. I mean, both of you are a heck of a lot smarter than me. And it's just weird that I've had to learn so much by bothering people. And it's like, it's the people we elect in the city to bother me and say, hey, you're a business owner, you're the one who makes Coos Bay possible, you employ 27 people, almost 30 people, in the summer 35 people. So this is what we're planning to do, this is what we're going to do, what do you think about this? And I've just really, I don't know, take it hurt almost over it that, I wasn't brought into a business only meeting that says, hey, what do you guys want to do with downtown? I mean, right. So your turn, man. That's about it. It's just kind of.
I got a few questions to this.
That's great.
Then I'll let Rob. He looks like he might have a question or two. But my first question is so where did you get the idea to start this petition?
Well, again, hearing the hearsay on Facebook about the Devereux Center's moving to Inglewood. Again, the idea of this petition is to help people, and that includes the homeless and the Devereux Center. As bad as it sounds, there is a need for the core values of what they're trying to do. Have they ran it right? No, I don't think so. I think if, us 3 got on the board, I think we would run it a lot differently. But we can all agree that there are people out there who do need help. And, that could be a recovery person. I mean, I have a neighbor that has that, and they're one of the best people I've ever met in my life. I mean, they are wholesome. They're awesome people. So, I mean, people are people, but there's a big mental disconnect of people need help. Not everyone's just that. Of course, like I said, the way they have ran it, I personally feel like it could be done a lot better. And I'm not here to throw just Tara under the bus. I know that Tara has not done well at her job. I mean, if she worked for me, I'd fire her. I would tell you that.
Right.
But she has a hard job. I mean, let's admit it. She has a hard job. So I don't think she's the right person for that job. And I mean, when you're trying to do these petitions and trying to talk to people and learn and teach people, you can't just be stone cold, let's do this and let's shut everything down and blah, 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 because that's not what life is. I mean, God made all of us and we're all here and we all have an opinion and it all does matter. I mean, even if we don't throw as much weight for some people, it does matter. And so it's like, what are we going to do? So this petition got started. What are we going to do? I mean, yeah, we could start at the top and, property values. My property value is going to drop by 18%, which is the national average. If a low incomer or housing center move into your neighborhood, your properties drop by 18% according to the National Board of Realtors. So, I mean, we could talk about that. We could talk about the drug use. We could talk about the garbage, but honestly, there's just this thing is so deep. And the real question I have is why so fast? And, when I talk to different city personnel or higher ups or old lawyers that have been here for 50 years, they said, well, it wasn't fast, Adam. It's been in the talks for over a year.
It's been in
which
the
is
talks
true
for 3 years. Yeah. It's
exactly
been for a while.
Exactly.
But whenever anyone was asked, anyone of authority or power or knowledge of it was asked if this was true, everybody was, oh no, there's no plans to do that. There's nothing. Everything was kept quiet. I mean, there was a veil of deceit, an intentional veil of deceit through that whole process, I believe.
So,
definitely,
Adam, if your petition is successful, then it will stop the move, but then the Devereux Center will still be over in the Empire area, and you had an idea on that as well. And if I remember correctly, you were thinking about getting the business together and suing the Devereux Center for nuisance violations, which that's one of the things that has been talked about several times over the last couple of years. And I think that may be what happens if you are successful with this petition.
Right. So that is an option. Again, if you go down that road, which that trash needs to be done. If it's not done, then yes. I mean, even my 3-year-old daughter knows, follow the rules and playtime will follow. I mean, if a 3-year-old can get it, people getting paid 60, 70, 100 grand a year can get it. So yes, you're absolutely correct. That is something the city could do, according to some of the lawyers I've been speaking to. However, when you decide to sue a nonprofit that is quote unquote helping people, you're going to have lawyers, big bad lawyers with big teeth, sue the city. That's
national lawyers.
Big lawyers. I mean, so, that's another can of worms is like, do we as taxpayers really want to be fighting and paying lawyers third and fourth homes? I mean, you really have to figure out how you're going to do this. So can we as a city do that? I mean, I can't, but we can change the ORSs. You can. I've been learning, like I said, so much. After this petition, if this thing fails, the city will own that lot. It's already pretty much done. However, they need a driver from what I've been learning. They need a manager to run the homeless center. So if the Devereux Center does not move and they choose not to move, I believe, and I don't know, but I'm learning that they will be moved sooner or later, because I don't think that the city is going to allow them to stay in Empire. And the reason I think that is I used to live in Empire. I moved out right as they started all the sidewalks and everything on your way out to Charleston out there. And it does look beautiful, but they spent a lot of prevailing wage money on that. So they have big plans for Empire. And I mean, you can talk to certain developers around town. There's some digging you could do, and you can see some land being bought up by people that have other interests in town. And again, it's not the right time to say that because you got to be careful what you say and who you talk to. We are learning. I am learning. My wife is learning. People are saying, hey, what can I do to help? We're all learning. And that's, I'm trying to set this town hall together so I can bring the Devereux Center to a table. I can bring you to a table and the city council to a table. Again, there's rules about that. I can't personally hold it because I already talked to the Egyptian. They said, yep, we'll do it for you. But I have to have the city do it because it has to be their show, even though I'm hoping to run it so I can keep things calm and civil. Because really communication is going to go so much farther than a plan of action of suing someone. Because yes, the city could absolutely sue them for trash. The city could sue them for a public nuisance. Inglewood can sue them for a public nuisance. I can put someone on notice. Think of it as simple as a tree leaning over your property line as your neighbor has a tree, and you know it's going to blow on your barn. So you put them on what's called notice. You hire a lawyer and you write them a letter, and the lawyer writes them a letter and says, hey, if this tree falls, you will be responsible. And that's the end of it. So if the tree falls, then you have a very easy path to sue. And that's basically what business owners in Inglewood would be doing, which of course I've been talking to all the business owners. But again, if you sue the Devereux, you're just fighting, you're just slitting your own wrist down the road because you just be paying for it later. So I think if this thing fails, I think Coos Bay has a plan to move them or make them move. So the Devereux Center, I think, is in a very hard spot. I personally do, because it's either move and then the city's in charge. Did you want to say something?
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
So,
Give your point.
Either move. I mean, that's kind of my point, is either move and, you're going to clean it up, which is great, but I just don't think they can do it with the mix of people that they serve. You have good homeless, which the pellet homes are actually not doing a bad job. Yes, we've had a couple more calls out in Inglewood because I have all the police reports. I've been doing my homework, but it's not like the Devereux Center where there's over 600 calls in 1 year on average. And I have all the data from that. It's astronomical. And, it just goes so deep, man. I mean, you could sit here and badmouth the city and badmouth, everyone, but whose fault is it? I mean, it's like, where was I when all this was happening? I mean, this would have been so much easier to stop and just put a knife in if I just would have been plugged in, but I didn't know. So something's got to change.
I will give you an answer to that in a minute, whose fault it was, but I want to go back to a couple of things that you said. Number one is that the city they dumped a lot of urban renewal money into the Empire neighborhood, and they want to build that neighborhood up because it's a beautiful place if they actually could get investors in there, put in restaurants, put in hotels. And the Indian tribe, they've been trying to redo Hollerin Place for a long time. They wanted to do a hotel there. They wanted to do some restaurants there. And I think it's a great idea. I think that whole entire place could be a beautiful place, except for one little zit on the butt, and that is Devereux Center. And because Devereux Center attracts some of the least desirable people that you could want to an area, and I'm not talking about the homeless, because there's a lot of things that we can do about the homeless people who are just about to lose their house, or people who finally got into a house because they've been working, they've been trying. And by the way, Matt Wilbanks, the guy who does the neighborhood watch, he is technically homeless. He lives in his van. And so he's someone who has a job and actually functions as a good person in society. So I don't knock people who are homeless. I'm knocking the derelict that are being enabled by the Devereux Center. And that's the problem with Para, is that she's not enforcing the rules that used to be listed on their website. So you've got the developers who wanted to develop the area. You got the Devereux Center, who has many different problems, and they are going to sell that building for $500,000. The rumor is that the Indian tribe is going to buy it, once again, because of the development that's going to go on. Then they're going to move over to the Pro Diesel building. That $500,000 is going to pay for part of the Pro Diesel building, and the city is going to be partnering with the Devereux Center. Now, this is much more than just a landlord-tenant type of relationship. This is more like an employer-employee type relationship, because the city of North Bend put a bunch of stipulations in the MOU that they passed on Tuesday to authorize that grant. That grant is coming from the governor's homeless fund, which was created by House Bill 4123 back in 2022. And I was opposed to it then, because what they're doing is they're spending more of our tax dollars to make housing affordable for those who can't afford it, but making housing less affordable for those who are paying for it. So to me, you're just robbing from Peter to pay for Paul, and you're going to make Peter eventually homeless too, because more people aren't going to be able to afford these taxes. I think it's a bad idea, and that's a whole other subject as well. So the city of North Bend had that grant, the MOU, and they put a bunch of stipulations in it because David Milliron does not like Tara Johnson. And there is a backstory behind that because Tara Johnson used to have his wife as a volunteer, and his wife, David Milliron's wife, quit the Devereux Center because of the shady stuff that was going on, is the rumor that I've heard. Yeah, I know.
I
Rob.
like him more now. I was kind of picking on him a little bit because of that whole one of you gets 3 minutes thing, but that shines some new light. David, I apologize.
Yeah, so David, and don't apologize too bad. I mean, the guy has done a lot of stuff that I'm not happy with as well. But David Milliron, because he is kind of a control freak himself, he knew that it would be best that in this MOU that they put these stipulations, because if they're partnering, well, let's explain this way. The city of North Bend is the fiduciary holder in the Homeless Advisory Board. And the city of Coos Bay is the management, the facilitator in the Homeless Advisory Board. So they're giving the money to the Devereux Center so that the Devereux Center can then partner with the city of Coos Bay. And then they put these stipulations on it. And I went there and I told them to pass that MOU on Tuesday, and a lot of people were mad at me, but I tried to explain it, and you only get 3 minutes, and there's no way in hell you can explain this whole intricate deed of what's going on. So I couldn't explain how House Bill 4123 that was passed in 2022, which, by the way, all three of our Republican representatives voted for. David Bucks voted for it. Boomer Wright voted for it. Dick Anderson voted for it. So I'm not voting for them ever again, and they're Republicans. And so they passed this bill that forced the counties to either create a homeless response board, a homeless advisory board, or they wouldn't get the funding out of this $220 million. Like you said, that's how the counties get their money. We went to the county and we told them this was going to happen. We told them not to take the money, that they are bribing you with our tax dollars, and that we have to find another way of fixing this. Well, Rod Taylor, Bob Main, and John Sweet said, no, Rob, it's so complex. You can't understand it. We got to take the money and create this board. Well, this board now has more authority than the county commissioners, and this is how. This board can go to the governor. It takes 3 phone calls. And I verified this with several different city councilors. And I know David Milliron knows this is true too. This is why he put the stipulations in that bill. In that MOU, because they can go, the advisory board can call the governor's office on homelessness and get the money, to get the grant for the Devereux project without even going to the city or the commissioners, the county commissioners. That gives them more authority than the commissioners, because the commissioners can't even go to the governor and ask for more money unless it's an emergency. So David Milliron, knowing that the board could go themselves to the governor, wrote up this MOU and told them they can have the money under these stipulations, and they agreed to it. Here's the better part of it. Like you were saying, Adam, the Devereux Center right now is a nonprofit. Once they partner with the city becomes liable for the whole project. So if you got to sue anyone now, guess who you get to sue? The city. Now, you're right. You're going to have to fight your own tax dollars for this, because that's what they use to defend themselves. But it gives us a little bit more of a prying mechanism to force them, to have to enforce their own rules. And guess what? They can decide to get rid of people like Tara Johnson, which I've heard through the rumor mill. That's what several people want to do. They want to get rid of Tara. So you're going to change management. You're going to get people in there who hopefully will enforce the rules, because they'll lose their funding, they'll lose their job, and they won't be able to have that building there. And, the building will stay. The city will continue to own it. But this was all manipulated by the legislature and the governor so that they could have a little more authority over the counties. This is how we're losing autonomy as a county. And so when we asked the county commissioners, not to accept the money from House Bill 4123, they went ahead and created this advisory board. And then in 2023, they passed House Bill 5019, which gave the $220 million to the governor. And so 4123 creates the advisory board. The next year in 2022, 4123, that's House Bill 4123, created the advisory board. Then in 2023, House Bill 5019 created the funding that went to the governor. So all of this was planned in the legislature. And do you know who is really good friends with Tara Johnson and helped her help in the creation of this? Senator David Brock Smith. In fact, I've had Tara Johnson on my show, and Senator David Brock Smith showed up to my radio show just so I wouldn't be so hard on her. And I wasn't going to be hard on her at all because I was just really trying to find out a lot of information. So a lot of people don't know this backstory of how some of our Republican representatives, Boomer Wright, Dick Anderson, and David Brock Smith, were working with the Devereux Center to help the state get that funding so that they can bribe the county for our own tax dollars. That's the backstory, in case you didn't know.
It's a web, but I will say, you know, one of the things I was stating before, that if you don't use it, you lose it. And we already starve for our own tax dollars here. I mean, like I said about the jail, I mean, they want to create yet another bond for something because, you know, we can't open enough beds. And, you know, it's so hard because as a business owner, you trim the fat. If you don't have enough money for one thing, yeah, dude, I make $15 an hour at the Heron right now. $15 an hour since COVID. I used to pay myself $35. So you trim the fat, and here I am doing something else. I've never seen, you know, anybody take a pay cut in the city ever, but it's a different rules. You can't. I mean, it's very difficult to not get a COLA. It's difficult to not get union wages or, you know, prevailing. It's different. And that's the root of the problem that I'm going to attack after this. I've learned the next state, if this thing fails, you ask me what I'm going to do next. The very next thing is, you know, I told you what I think the city's going to do because they have big plans, which is a little upsetting because here I am on 101 with my house and two other properties paying, you know, $26,000 a year in property taxes. And they're going to take all that and spend it in Empire, which, okay, I get what they're trying to do. But the point is, if you move this thing, you're going to have supposedly, and don't quote me, but I've got many different numbers on how many people use the warming center. Now, this is not a daily thing. This is people living around the area, John Toppit's, everywhere else. Supposedly, it's between 350 and 1,100 is what I heard, which is a huge, because people don't come out and be counted. Nobody wants to be like, yeah, I'm homeless. Yeah, I shower there once a day. I live back in, you know, back here. Nobody wants to be counted. And, you know, you can't blame some people, and it sucks because it would be really nice to know what we're actually dealing with. But you're going to have 300 to 1,100 people, whatever, 2.5 blocks away from Highway 101. I mean, you think that you're going to create a nice Empire district that's 4.5 miles away from 101? If you're going to all panhandling right on 101 and Fred Meyer and Safeway, and, you know, a tourist going to come from California, which is where most of them come up, and see the 101 start and be like, yeah, I'm not going to go to the beach or come off the beaten trail. And, you know, that's a big problem, especially when Coos Bay's having the 3A basketball team tournament, which is all downtown. I mean, we got 3 schools literally within less than a mile of where they want to put this thing. You got Lighthouse. You got the middle school we just passed a bond and built. You got Marshfield High School. You got kids walking. I got kids coming down to the market in the morning walking. There's 6 bus stops between the market and the Pro Diesel. Just 6, just in that little tiny quarter-mile stop. I mean, it's crazy that they picked this spot. I mean, not to mention you got the flood zone, the dike breaks. They gotta build it up with gravel and dirt and let it sit for a long time to build those pellet homes, because once you take a grant from the government, you can't build housing in a temporary flood zone. So you have to make it a untemporary flood zone. So it's just, it's nuts how it's come about. And I understand that it's the only industrial place and it has to be into industrial place. But dude, there's 2,176 people living in just Inglewood. That's not counting Libby or the county or the other side where downtown Coos. That's just a little tiny bit of Inglewood there. I mean, it's crazy that they don't knock on people's doors and say, hey, this is what we're planning on doing. It's just, that baffles me. So you ask me what my next step is after this. Sit back, watch the city, see what they're going to do. After that, we got to find another place for the Devereux Center. I mean, a place that is not only safe, but is effective and manageable. I mean, it's crazy, you know, and I've been asked by the city, well, Adam, why don't you find another place for it? There's no places for it. I've listed like 100 places. Like literally, I could probably list 50 off the top of my head right now. And every time I mention it, you know, I try to go talk to the CEO of the hospital, Brian Moore. Won't call me back. Went in there, won't call me back. Left a message, won't call me back. His executive assistant, oh, Mr. Moore's really busy. It's like, oh yeah, does Mr. Moore, you know, doesn't get a guaranteed paycheck, have employees. It's so frustrating to try to talk with people who don't really care because they get a guaranteed paycheck. And I know that's not what this is about, but I just want it to get solved as fast as possible. And with government, I'm learning nothing gets solved as fast as possible. So I don't know where to go from here.
You know, you mentioned people not, oh, sorry, go ahead, Rob.
No, go ahead. You haven't had a chance yet.
I'll say
Go for it.
people not caring. You know, there's a lot of apathy now, and I'm becoming very apathetic towards the whole thing. It's just going around and around and around. And between, you know, I started a neighborhood watch thing when I first moved into Charleston, and my business was safe. It was the only business that had not been broken into or vandalized or burglarized in the time I was there. Every other building and business in that area was, because I took a really strong-handed approach. The homeless thing, and again, I have such a hard time using the verbiage homeless, because it's not a homeless problem. It's a bum problem. The homeless problem, we can help those people. If there was actually genuine people that needed the help, I would put forward, you know, I'm not trying to self-aggrandize here, and I don't even like talking about this. I've mentioned it once before, but I tell my kids on occasion, maybe once a month, maybe every now and then we think about it. You know, if you have a friend at school that needs some food, they need some help, whatever, let me know. We'll make an extra lunch for them. You know, if to say anything to them, you just hand it to them. Or the love of my life, she's brilliant. She said, you know, just pretend you're full. You don't want to eat, and go, hey, do you want it? And we'll feed these other people. And I know a lot of people would do that. And that's not the issue at hand. It's not those people we want to help. It's the bums, it's the crime. But the bums and the crime have created an industry, and that industry is very profitable. It's profitable for businesses, for private entities, for people like Tara. It's profitable for Cricket cell phones that have a deal with the federal government giving away free phones. When you look at your cell phone and you see the universal service charge, it's called universal service charge, that means we're taking your money and we're giving it to bums for cell phones that you have to pay for in your own pocket. We pay hundreds of dollars a month. We have tons of phones in our families. And further to, it is not just an industry, it has become a religion. The bums have become a religion. And how dare you speak of the noble bum, the brave and noble bum? Well, I haven't polled people, but I've spent a lot of time in my neighborhood chasing them out, keeping an eye on them. And there's dirtbags and there's bum dirtbags. And then there's homeless people that are a completely separate topic. And we keep mixing them all together. And that's where I get disinterested. It's like, this is just going to go on ad nauseum. It's never going to end in the history of mankind if we keep treating it the way it is. Until we're not going to solve the problems here, nor is that even really what we're doing at the Devereux Center. But until we get tough on crime, until we get tough on these people doing bad things, and we separate them from the good people that need help. I don't know, when I did my little video and I drove through Tara's little flop house there were not good people there that needed help. That parking lot was filled with destitute bums that choose that lifestyle, because I've driven around and said, hey man, I'm not offering them a job. I don't want to go near them. But I'm like, hey man, you want a job? We're hiring. No, I'm good. I get my check next month. Yeah. And a lot of these checks get sent to the Devereux Center. That's the address they use. That's the drop ship my drug money to the Devereux Center. So for me, I'm becoming so disheartened, and I've lost so much interest in all of this. And hearing you guys talk, I get excited. It's like, yes, something can be done. And then it's like, until the bums stop becoming a religion, until they stop becoming an institution unto themselves, until they stop becoming a cash cow, I don't think it ever will. It's just the wheels of the bus go round, the wheels of the bums go round and round, round and round, round and round. And I think that's what's going to happen. So I don't have a lot to add tonight, and I'm sorry for that, because I have such a malaise with the whole thing anymore. Been to a ton of meetings, started different groups over the years, been involved in different groups, and just kind of like, what are you going to do? The people here, there's a pervasive, permissive attitude of a big portion of the population here that just, bless their hearts, some of them genuinely think they're helping people that need help. And the other ones are just stupid and evil. Like, oh no, we got to feed them. Everyone deserves a place to live. Well, you got to work for it. That's how it works. Nobody deserves a house. That's not a guaranteed constitutional right. Nowhere in the Bible does it say, oh yeah, hey, you get a house. Nobody deserves to have food. Nobody deserves. You have to work for these things. You know what? Life is tough. Life is tough, and sometimes it sucks. And when you let people spoon feed you, you're never going to stop being spoon fed. And I think and again, I'm not contributing any solutions here, and I apologize for that. But until we change that mindset, until we stop making bums a religion, nothing is going to change.
So my idea, if I was king of Oregon, is
I'll vote for you.
Yeah, okay, I'm all in, and I would kick Tara the hell out of here, and I'd kick the governor the hell out of here as king. But there are certain things the legislature could do right now without raising our taxes or spending any more money. They could help lower development fees and permit requirements. They could increase the ability of the urban growth boundary or completely get rid of the urban growth boundary. They could ease up incredibly on the land use laws. That would be immense. We could get rid of the a lot of the regulations that they have on building new housing. I mean, it takes almost a year to go through the permit process. And we should have tax credits to give to people who are building low income housing, and that doesn't cost more money. You're just not going to get as much money. But right now, the state has a $5 billion surplus, and they're still fighting over giving us our kicker or not this year. And they do it every time that we have a surplus. And it's frustrating because now in the legislature, there are about 4 or 5 tax increases that they're considering them. One of them is they're calling it a property tax. But the fact is, it's a wealth tax because they're not going to just tax your property. They're going to tax all your assets. And that means the car, the Rolex on your wrist, everything. They're starting to look at all that stuff. And like I said, you cannot make housing affordable for those who can't afford it by making it less affordable for those of us who can. That does not work. Mm-hmm. That system is a failure. So those 5 things I just gave you, if I was king, would be things that I would implement. And then I would go back to enforcing the law. And you don't even have to get rid of Measure 110, and you certainly don't have to make drugs recriminalized. You just have to force the law because you're not allowed to camp on the sidewalk. That's not going to happen when I'm king of Oregon. It's
what about pooping? What about pooping on the sidewalk, Rob?
Pooping on the sidewalk.
What about pooping on the sidewalk?
That's the law. Yeah, that's against and your hypodermic needles. The fact that you're using drugs on the sidewalk, any vandalism, all of that stuff. Well, you would go to jail for, because I would open up the prisons, and then it would open back up the mental facilities that have been closed for the last 10 years. And we're talking dozens of mental facilities. Shutter Creek, when they shut that down, over 2,000 prisoners became homeless. Guess where they're now residing? With us here in Coos County. Congratulations. You just got all that. So there are a huge amount of things that can be done without raising taxes and without enabling people. And part of it is getting rid of this lawlessness that has been created. I mean, if you want to do drugs, I don't care if you're sitting in your house pumping all kinds of battery acid into your veins, as long as you're not on my front yard, crapping in my yard, crapping on my property,
stealing your stuff,
stealing my stuff. And all of this can be done. And you can also help the people who are legitimately homeless. Those people, if you're about to lose your house, it would be saving us tax dollars to find a way to get them the grant money instead of giving it to the Devereux Center. Maybe someone needs $1,000 to make that mortgage payment or to make that rent payment. It would be easier to give them the money and keep them from becoming homeless than it would be to give money to people who are derelicts who, if you gave them a home, they would destroy it within a month's period. So, there are some, Rob.
Why can't we have a work program for the people that are on the system, that are habitually on the system. Like, we have a work problem, even here locally, it's probably unconstitutional. Somebody will probably call it slavery. Somebody's going to put something on it, but it's like, you got bums that are taking. How about, hey, today you're picking up garbage. You're picking up the needles and the other stuff that you've made a mess with. And I don't know. You gotta force people to do stuff sometimes, and it's like we're afraid to do it. We're afraid to offend anybody nowadays.
Well, yeah. I'll tell you guys. About 2018, I actually talked to other business owners because there was the sidewalks all down Coos Bay because somebody decided to plant massive trees all the way down sidewalks. They have destroyed all the sidewalks. So they're all cattywampus and there's grass grows all the way. It just looks like hell. So usually I pressure wash the front of my buildings and the sidewalks. This year has been difficult and I don't have a lot of time. So I'm supposed to do it next week. But so my building looks like hell. However, I brought to the attention of all the business owners and I had the same idea. I said, let's all pitch in $20 a month and we can literally create a job where the homeless or anyone can go pick up garbage, clean gutters, prune the town's trees, which I have to prune even though I don't even own the trees 3 feet away from my building, and pressure wash all the grass. And so I said, okay, so I brought it up to a couple city people back then, and they said, nope, can't do that. I said, well, why? It's an amazing program. It doesn't cost you $1. And they said, because if one of those people trips on the city, we'll be liable. We have to pay for insurance.
You know what? Then the city pays the insurance instead of all the other garbage, instead of a plastic skating rink they put in. I know it's North Bend. Sorry,
dude. I'm just telling you, I have gathered businesses that would all be willing to pitch in $20 a month, and that would pay for a full time.
You made a solution. You found a solution.
It's an amazing solution. Unfortunately, it's the same thing as paying someone under the table, basically, because you have to. The answer I got was just crazy. And again, being from Reedsport, it's like, let's just get this done. Like, who cares? But now that I'm 36 now, it's like, wow, you really can't do that. I mean, these are simple answers that. Everything just is in so much red tape, and it's not just the city's fault. I mean, the very last thing about this petition is. If it works, then I told you I think the Devereux Center will be forced one way or another, and the city will be forced one way or another. The next step, talking to the 2 lawyers that I got, is actually hiring a petition writer, because I can't do it. You have to actually hire someone to write it's a licensed thing. Like, I'll show you the RF if you like. It's crazy.
I'm surprised you didn't have to create a political action committee.
Oh my
gosh.
It's crazy. So So my idea is I've talked to other business owners in Roseburg, basically all the little counties all over Oregon, because I don't know anybody in Eugene or Portland, but I know people. Again, when you own businesses, you meet other people. And the next step is this grant money that we're getting, we can only spend it on, in the city limits. It can't be in the county. It can't be in certain areas. It can't be in residential. We can't rezone things. And it's like, why can't we do this stuff? It's our land. Why can't we? And so the next step, after all this stuff happens, I'm going to sit back and watch after the Devereux, is I'm going to start hitting Oregon, because I'm nobody, but there's somebody out there who's on fire who doesn't know it yet. And if I can find that person and they're smart, or maybe they're an ex-lawyer, or maybe they're an old retired guy, it's like, I'm kind of tired of this too. They're going to find us and they're going to be like, all right, let's talk to Oregon. I mean, you get enough votes, you can overpower. I mean, the people in Portland are sick of it too. I was at Jake's Seafood, I don't know, a couple months ago in Portland. If you ever eaten there or not, amazing restaurant. It's disgusting. I mean, outside they blocked all the parking off. I mean, it's such a trash heap. It's like, this sucks. Like, you got this, you know how much they pay for rent right there in the Pearl District? Like, it's sick. Like, I can't even imagine having a business there, and it's bad. So people are tired of it, not just in Coos Bay. It's an Oregon thing, and we can change it. I know you're tired. I know you're tired, and I know you're angry, and I know I'm just starting the game, and so I'm full of energy and vigor and 36 years old.
We need that. I would kill to be 36 years old again. I was like 21 years ago.
It's the miles, not the age, bro. Anyways, I'm trying to reach out. I'm trying to find people who are way smarter. And, I don't know what I'm supposed to say or not say. I do have some meetings with the city, not in private or behind doors, but they've noticed what's gaining traction. They've noticed my name. And so they say, hey, we want to meet with you. We want to talk. And again, I don't know what I can or can't say yet, But I do want to have that town hall meeting, and that's our next step. As long as we can remain calm during the whole thing. I'm trying to get Tara there. She said she doesn't want to be, but one of the things I've talked to some of the Devereux Center, and I hope to talk more, is if they hope to move and if they hope to have a new face anywhere or stay there, they have to redo it. They have to rebrand themselves. And, transparency is one thing they have to do. And I told them, I said, you need to post every day. How many needles did you find on the property? How many poops did you kick off today? How many meals did you make? How many sleeping bags? We need to know.
She says she has a 40% success rate. What's your measure of success? What metric are you using? I don't believe there is, because if there was, we'd be hearing about it. She'd be shouting it from the rooftop. Well, she couldn't get on a roof, but she'd be shouting it from the sidewalk. There's no 40% success rate. This is a failed model. Of course, she doesn't want to show up.
It's definitely not working. But on the other hand, I will say, although I really enjoy a lot of the stuff you post, some of it I spit my water out over the Star Wars one, and I shouldn't. Again,
so
that was a good one. But
if you look at during America's inception, memes and the internet right now are the printing press. They're the modern printing press of these United States. When we had to disseminate ideas and dare I say, I don't take this the wrong way, but foment revolution, when we had to speak out against the powers that be, when we had to get ideas put out, people made memes. They were political cartoons, and they were printed on the first printing presses that came out. And that was a valuable, important way of getting, and they weren't always in good taste, and they weren't always in good color. And I am using the modern printing press with my memes and having a heck of a fun time doing it.
So I have some of them saved, but
I don't want you to get upset because you're saying you don't know what to say and what not to say.
Hit me up.
It doesn't really matter because you're going to piss off people and you're going to find yourself somewhere. So I've lost that filter years ago, and believe me, when I went in there on Tuesday night and I sat down, I looked at the mayor. I had looked because I had already talked to David Milliron, and they were scared because they knew I was going to speak and they thought I was going to go off on them like all the rest of the citizens. And when I started telling them to vote yes for that grant, I thought they were going to crap their pants. They were looking at me like, oh my God, this is my best friend. And in fact, one of the counselors gave me a compliment at the end of it saying, that radio guy made a lot of sense. Because it's not their fault, David. It's not the city's fault. It's not the county's fault. The legislature and the governor have created this lawless state. That's correct. They have created the homeless industrial complex and forced it upon the counties. That's all true. And by the way, if I went back to being king, I would get rid of most of the zoning laws. Those would go away. And
Texas doesn't have them.
Right, Texas don't have them, and it's a beautiful place. I would get rid of I would get rid of what's happening in the court system. I'd have tort reform where losers have to pay, and if you lose, you don't get paid if you're an attorney. Right now, there's lawyers in Portland who are waiting to sue for the homeless because they get paid whether they win or lose. That system would end if I was king. It's the same with the environmentalists. There are laws. If you sue for an environmental reason and it's a certain court case, they win no matter whether they lose or not because they get paid. That would end. So I need a little bit of comic relief right now, and I thought this was freaking hilarious. Can you see the meme I put up there, Rob? This is one of yours.
Yes, I can. I wasn't paying attention at first, and then it popped up. I've always said they I feel bad because I hear good things about it, but they kind of look the same. They look the So I'm looking at my phone. It's very small, but that is the same person.
That is the same person, I think. I mean, there you go, and you can find them. I think you've got something here. Now, Adam is going to shit over here because he's thinking, you're okay, man. You're okay. They're going to love you. They love this stuff.
They
So let's
don't.
see a few more.
I will tell you, David Milron. I have heard. I've done a little digging on the guy, but I will tell you, he is beyond intelligent. I mean, I've got a
Yeah.
couple emails asking some questions. That guy is not dumb. He is very, very bright. Now, he does. Smart people come off a little pompous. I will say that, my previous employer, Wim, who owned the Blue Heron before he, unfortunately, I've kind of got his legacy, and everyone, still thinks that we're in bed together. But he's actually not as bad as guy as you think. I've only had about 4 conversations with him. But
Wim. I've known Wim
Gotcha.
for 20 years, man, and Wim's a genius himself.
Yeah.
He's written
Well,
several books that were really good.
I can't stop looking at that.
It's so bad, dude. You got to change it, man. Supposed
So
to have
listen-
meetings with people over here.
The reason David Milliron, they keep him at the city is because he is very intelligent and he knows how
Yes.
to work the economic development system. Let me explain to you something, how smart this guy is. Last year, Coos Bay, they got $1 million in grant money from other places. Last year in North Bend, David Milliron got $6 million in grant money. That's quite impressive.
So
The man-
is he good at what he does overall? Does he get an A rating, a B rating from you? What does he get?
Well, he for his achievements and for doing city administrative work, I'll give him an A. But for what he's done personally to people, like the police department, what he did with them, they gave him a vote of no confidence. What he did to the airport worker by having him respond to, I forget the entire story, but it basically accused him of making a false police report that he created. And that's a long story I'd have to go into. And then he doxed one of my buddies, Samuel Adams. He doxed him at a city meeting and actually investigated Samuel Adams, found out who he was through the city editor because Samuel Adams would write letters to the paper, got his address, looked on the voter roll, figured out who it was, and then doxed him at a city meeting. So vote for those kinds of things. That just ticks me off. You know what I mean? But
for sure.
What he did administratively, that's $6 million he got for the city. So you have to give the guy kudos for that, And he doesn't like Dara. The fact he doesn't
again, my only experience with him was, hey, y'all, you got one person 3 minutes, and that just put such a bad taste in my mouth. And that, but you've helped me. You've helped me learn today.
Well, see, we're all learning. So, there's your picture. I love this picture. It kind of looks like the moon, but yet it's a rainbow. You see how I'm saying it kind of looks like the moon? It's like, that's a wild picture. Where is that?
That's right across from the Inglewood Market.
That's really cool.
So what you don't know is actually that rainbow goes into one end of Coos Bay. So that one end of the rainbow is at the Devereux Center. And one side has the pot of gold. The other side has feces and needles. You got to pick, man. You got to pick.
Well, so let me ask you a question. This is a tough question.
Yes.
If you were in charge of the Devereux Center, and remember, you're going to be watched. You're going to be judged. And there's a guy like me and Mr. Doug Washington there, right? We want to go shoot up after we take a shower and a nice hot meal. How are you going to stop me from doing that with your volunteer of women and old folks?
Well,
police presence. You ask the police are there all the time anyway. Oh, go. Sorry.
Yeah.
The police are there once or twice a day.
Yeah. If I find you doing it on my property, you're never allowed back. You're done. You lose it. You lose your address to get your checks from. You lose the ability to come onto the property and get a hot meal. We're not going to give you any more sleeping bags. We're not going to give you any more tents. If you get a police report that you're vandalizing or committing other crimes, you lose it. You lose all your access, and I'm not going to enable you. And there are charities out there who are functioning really well by enforcing rules. I forget the religious homeless shelter.
The Mission.
The Mission. Okay, at the Mission, and by the way, did you know their beds don't count towards the beds this county needs for the how many beds they've created? And the reason it's because they're Christians. If you're a Christian and you have people pray and you have services that people are required to go to, you no longer qualify as someone who can be counted as a legitimate place to park yourself. And I think that's discrimination on my part.
Huh.
Here's a very fun fact. I stopped by the Mission, tried to get the director there to call me back, as I used to donate there once upon a time. He would not. And I told him, that $3.4 million, that could be all yours, baby. All they need is a driver. Wasn't interested. Why? I said, why? You guys are running an amazing place. I mean, you have a 70% full capacity rate right now, only 70% full. I said, there's no garbage. I mean, they do have police calls there, but not 600 a year, because they require 3 applications, job applications. You're required to do an hour of chores in the morning, an hour of chores at night. You cannot be drunk. You cannot be high. And they're very tight. You are 100% correct on that. But I will tell you, the people that you see outside that little fence on the sidewalk at the Devereux Center, those are people who have been trespassed. Like I said, I've been digging on these people, and I've talked to some cop buddies of mine, and those people have been trespassed, which is why they're on the side street and hanging around. So it's really hard because, again, so last night at my store, we trespassed a guy, and he ran out of gas, but he was shooting up on the left-hand side of Inglewood. And so I called the cops, and the guy comes down and looks at his insurance, no insurance. So the guy just sits in the car, right? Because he can't drive. He's get the car towed because he has no insurance. So he sits there. Well, the cops wait 10 minutes, and I call him again. I said, hey, the guy's been trespassed, but he didn't want to leave his vehicle because he didn't want me to tow his vehicle. So the cops wait a little bit. They come back, and they arrest him because he was trespassed, and he wouldn't leave because he didn't want to leave his vehicle. Well, come to find out, there was 2 other women in the car, so I couldn't get the car towed because they won't tow a car if there's people in the car. So after the officer left, they had a licensed driver come and move the car. But it's, I guess the problem with this trespassing thing is there's so many of them that have been trespassed, and they're just hanging out on the sidewalks. And I mean, how in the world, we only have 4 officers on at a time at a shift. So how are they supposed to come and just keep picking them up, bringing them to Coquille, picking them up, bringing them to Coquille? I mean, dude, those officers have to do paperwork.
Just gotta do it.
I know.
Here's the thing. There are different degrees of trespassing, and after a certain amount of trespassing, it increases the violation, and you get longer and longer terms in jail. The problem is now nobody stays in jail because they got 48 beds, and they're full right now. And
with bad people, not trespassers, bad people.
The problem. They want to open that up, and they've got the ability to have 250 people. I think it's 248 people in 248, that. The problem is that the DA, they don't have any money to hire any assistant DAs, and they're now 1,800 cases behind. And by next year, that's going to be 2,400, I can tell you right now. And so it doesn't even matter if they do prosecute them, because the state doesn't hold people in prison anymore like they used to. So now they're kicking people out of prison. And this has all been created by the legislature, who, like I said, they've closed down prisons. They're not keeping people in prison for certain crimes. And so the DA doesn't prosecute those crimes because he's got murderers and rapists and real crimes they got to deal with. So the cops stop arresting them because nobody goes to jail, and they don't have funding for the jail anyway. And if they did, like I said, the rest of the system from there up is broken. But it's broken from the top down. And I'll tell you who's to blame. We, the voters, and not us 3, because we probably didn't vote for the crazies that did this. But the people in Portland and Salem who keep putting the same commie Democrats into office have created this situation by their votes. And the legislature has followed through on this, and they keep getting reelected. So I really don't know what to do, because it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Well, I tell you, if I was a police officer, I wouldn't be, but if if I was a police officer, I think one of the funnest things to do is to pick these people up, drive them to Coquille, and make them walk back, because that would suck. And I would just do it all day long. I mean, honestly, that's what I would do. But there's a reason why I'm not a cop, I suppose. But listen, one of the last things I want to say, the last thing I want to do, say about is another way to get the sidewalks clear and the streets clear is ADA. And I don't know if anybody's looked into that, and I'm starting to, is the ADA, the Americans with Disability Act. They are so beyond serious about sidewalks being clean and clear. And not just the Devereux Center, but the city needs to get a handle on this, because if you have a guy in a wheelchair not being able to get on the sidewalk because of a public nuisance, well, not only is the city going to be in trouble for not cleaning that up, but the Devereux Center is going to be in trouble. Even though they've trespassed the people and it's now the city's responsibility, it's a very big bag. But you get somebody who's disabled, go put them on that street and videotape them and put it online, see what happens.
But a lot of those bums fall under that umbrella of the protected species.
Yes.
I've been under investigation by the state. I myself remember Joey Fullerton. And I like to think I played a big part in getting Joey off the streets and into a treatment facility where he belonged because of my memes, because of my constant bashing, and all these left-wing wackadoodle bleeding heart scumbags that called me in and complained all the time. I did nothing. I never did anything bad to a guy in my life, nor would I. Right. But I drew attention to it, and I made fun of the devil's row of this creature right here and all these other people for enabling. They enable, whether they do it directly or indirectly. She is a magnet for this, ergo she is an enabler for this. And I just drew attention to it, and I spoke out it, and then other people started doing it, tons of people, and that guy got the help he needed. You know, men have to speak out. Good men have to speak out. I can't believe that every freaking guy that's born and raised here over the age of maybe 40 hasn't stood up, hasn't come to meetings and said, we've had enough of this crap. And every man that was born and raised here and is probably age 50 and over and has been here their whole lives, they're to blame. They're to blame. No offense to anybody, but what the hell happened? Like you eat your Cheerios one morning, you looked out and went, oh shit, there's bums in my yard. Well, look at that. Well, there's nothing you can do.
I'm watching school board meetings where they're actually debating on whether or not to allow men into the little girl's bathroom. And I'm thinking, this is beyond debate. We're going to kick some ass of anyone who goes into the bathroom while my little girl's there. I watch these guys who are huge, big guys. These are people who'd be, just big, extraordinarily huge. And they're talking and debating about whether to have a man in the little girl's restroom. And that's where we are in this country. So the homeless thing almost seems like, well, nothing compared to when you're talking about that. But you were talking about the ADA. I just used that to get my chief of police to clear the sidewalk down at the end of the street. Every now and then I'll get 4 or 5 bums who hang out at the end of my street. So I called him up. He says, well, I already talked to him. I said, well, you do know that sidewalk was put in specifically to enable wheelchairs to go from the dead end street to the other side of the street without any interference. And I said, the Portland just got sued. I'd hate to see the city of Boston get sued. And all of a sudden, 5 minutes later, he's down there yelling at him, clear your crap out of here, move it all. And they moved on.
So it's not because it was the right thing. It's not because it was the proper thing to do to protect the citizenry, to protect the good people. It wasn't because of some higher calling. It was because, crap, we might get sued. We might get in trouble with the higher powers. Like nobody stands up for what's right. Everybody does it because, there might be consequences somewhere. Nobody actually does what's right. Like I say, this whole moving of the devil's row, I personally will have a better quality of life if they move that giant fetid dump to Adam's side of town. I benefit. Man, it's a win for me. I don't have to see it anymore. You send me texts every now and then of stuff that you see going on out there. And we'll laugh and we'll commiserate. I remember the days when they used to poop on my sidewalk. But it doesn't do any good to move one evil and keep it the same and move it to another spot. But like you guys are talking about, if it's under the umbrella, if it's under the auspices of the city, then maybe there is something. But I'm so jaded. It's like, yeah, it sounds good, but the city will be a bunch of bleeding hearts, and they're going to be like, no, we can't do that.
And so part of the problem is that people like us don't run for office. And I've been telling you, Doug Washington, Senator Doug Washington, don't go away. You and Adam Palmer here, you guys need to run for office, and it starts at the school board, it starts at the city council, and then you move your way up to the state rep and then senator. And I know it's a shitty job. I won't lie to you. It's a really shitty job. You get no rewards for it, and you got to say no a lot. But that's where we're at, is that if we had a city council in Coos Bay who was willing to fight the nuisance that is going on the Devereux Center, we wouldn't be having this discussion. If the county commissioners wouldn't have taken that money and created the homeless response committee, I don't think we would be having to deal with this. Well, I know we wouldn't have to be dealing with this move because they wouldn't have got the money. And yeah, the county would have lost this money, but at a certain point, you have to take the loss, and we have to try to figure out how to do it ourselves. And if we don't have the money, we can't enable these people. And I'm not talking about the homeless. I'm talking about the derelicts. Those are the ones I want to stop enabling them, stop giving them their checks, stop giving them their sleeping bags, their tents, and all that crap. And if they want to leave, we'll show them the sidewalk. In fact, I'll pay for a bus ticket out of here. But and I have. By the way, did you know there was a young man who was here in Coos Bay, and we got him money, and we paid for him to go all the way to Florida to go back to his family. Well, his family had a drinking. His brother had a drinking problem. His mother died or something, and he was back on the street in Florida. He called the ADAPT program. I think it's the ADAPT program here, and they gave him a bus ticket from Florida all the way back to Coos Bay, which in a way it was kind of good because they actually accused us of killing him, of not giving him
because he disappeared off the streets. I remember that. Rob Taylor and his bunch, they went and they killed this guy. They put, I bet you that Mason Tackle guy put him in a crab pot. Yeah.
They all killed him. And he's back on the street. We're like, see, we told you so. And you can't make this stuff up. You know what I mean? And so, you were just talking about, who's the guy in the wheelchair you were just talking about?
Joey Fullerton.
Remember
Remember his language?
Yeah, I read the crab walk.
I have to do enough meth to actually understand that. But it was cruel. It was kind to be cruel. You were a little mean with the memes, and that's perfectly okay because, like you said, it got the attention. Because you know what's really cruel? Leaving a man like that to his own, just dismal destruction, self-destruction in the streets. So our kids have to watch that.
That's it. What about our kids, our children? That's my number one concern, and they have to see that. And what's this one? That's good. And on all the bleeding hearts, like, oh, you're making memes about him. You're such a horrible person. Well, then take him into your house. Take him into your house and look after him. That was the most cruel and unusual thing I've ever seen done to a human being, was let Joey Fullerton, those are great, was let Joey Fullerton just exist on the streets in the manner that he was. That was the most insidious, third world, anti-American thing I've ever seen. But I was the bad guy for making memes and talking about it and bringing light to it. Like, that's just the insanity of some of these people.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm been called all kinds of names lately on my own Facebook page because I've been bringing light to the gender transitioning that they're doing to children. The FBI put out on the genital mutilations for women, because in certain African cultures, they cut off the clitoris of women at a certain age. It's genital mutilation, and there's actually a genital mutilation day. And the FBI put out this notice how they're going after anyone who sends young women out of the country to have those operations. And I'm thinking, well, where is the FBI to stop them from cutting off the little wee-wees and pee-pees of the little girls and boys here who are, being completely mutilated before they're 18. And you know what? If you want to have a transition at 18 and want to become a gender pretender, that's perfectly fine for me. And in fact, if you're really cool, I might even use the proper pronoun. You know what I mean? He, they, their, them, whatever. I don't know.
Every kid under the age of 16 that has requested to have the reassignment surgery has parents with purple hair and face piercings. That's a guarantee.
Yeah, it's tough. Again, trying to be in the middle of the road but not is very difficult because I'm generally the kind of person who's like, absolutely not. And how would you like it if someone told you how to raise your kids? Your very first, having 3 kids myself, I'd be like, fight me over it, but it's difficult. I mean, my wife's sister is the most she loved the riots in Portland. And my father-in-law was a police officer until 2 years ago. And he was in Portland. He was a jailer in Multnomah County. And,
Oh, wow.
my wife was freaking out crying during the whole, BLM thing. And she was down visiting. And I was like, what in the hell? And she's like, well, what do you mean it's good? Reform it. It's like, oh my gosh, like touchy subject, I know, but it's like, it's weird. Everyone has their own strong opinion. And no matter what I do to this lady, I mean, it's always fun to mess with her at Christmas or whenever she comes over, but there is no convincing her. I mean, I have tried logic, stats. I have tried showing her. I've tried teasing the hell out of her. I've been mean. I've been nice. It's weird. And now, we just don't talk very often, but it's weird. And I'm telling you, there's no way, even online with this petition, there's people, well, you're not going to do any good. Why do you want to move it? How come, you used to live in Empire? How come you hate us now? And it's like, holy mackerels. It's not that I don't want to move it. It's that moving one trash heap to another is not the answer. It has to be cleaned up. And again, the way to do this is to put pressure on the city, put pressure on the legislature, and put pressure on the commissioners. And, but at the same time, you can't just twist someone's arm. These guys are all bigger, have a bigger bankroll, and a lot more powerful than me or you or all of us put together. So again, we got to find the right people to do so. And talking to some of these lawyers, there is a way that if you guys really want to get nasty and you have some deep pockets, which I certainly don't at this time anymore, but not that I did before, but you can create a coalition where you literally sue them. You hire a lawyer and you all pitch in and you do a citywide sue. You can sue your own city. You can sue Tara Johnson. You can sue the Devereux. You can sue me. You can sue anything you want. You're not going to win sometimes, but there's a way, if you guys really want to do it, you can do it. I mean, lawyers get paid no matter what. They'll take any case you want. Yeah. So you got to remember, someone's saying something.
Yeah, this is
actually on that note. I've got to return some calls and I have to run. I didn't think I'd be able to do this. I didn't add a lot to the whole thing, but guys, it was a pleasure. Rob, sorry to leave you hanging like this, but I actually have another. I'm going fishing, and my fishing partner's heading out to the water right now. I'm trying to make something up, like, well, I've got a congressman calling me, and I've got to I've got to go fishing right now.
Fire outside! I gotta go.
All right, guys, have a good one. Take care, everybody. Pleasure, gentlemen. God bless each and every one of you. God bless America.
All right. And this is a comment from Ann Campbell, and I don't know if you know anything about this, but hey, so there are a bunch of people at Forest Glen Retirement Home in Canyonville that have been abandoned. Have you heard about this retirement home?
No, but that's a big deal. What's going on?
It's huge. So basically, from what I understand, is that the owners, they just don't have the money anymore to keep paying the people who work there. So some of the people who used to work there now are kind of volunteering, but the people who were the retired people were helping out as well as volunteers. But at this point, they're just pretty much been abandoned. And I don't know what's going to happen to them. I'm going to follow up on this story, but this is how bad it could be, because these people could be the people we're talking about. These could be future homeless people in Coos Bay. And it's sad that this is happening. Here's her second comment. She says, there are 45 residents and the employees are volunteering because they haven't been paid since the 1st. And so I did see something on this on Facebook, and I'll probably cover it later on, but I want people to be aware that there are people hurting out there and can probably use a lot of help. So,
why isn't that national news? I mean, your great grandpa's in there, and you can't go rescue him or help out. I mean, I just don't. I guess I don't know. I just don't understand some of these things.
Sometimes people, it's sad because we really don't do good things for our elderly. I just watched my grandmother die. She was 98 years old. And we got the family around her. We made sure that she didn't have to go to the hospital because she wanted to die in the house. And, we don't value our old people, and it's really sad.
No, we don't. I on that note, I know it's a little switching gears again, but this petition has brought out so many people with different views on things. And one of the things I've been brought up is older folks who are deathly afraid of this thing moving, because the city, as you probably know, I just learned this again, newbie, the city, when they buy property through tax dollars or urban renewal, they don't pay property taxes on the property they just bought. So that pro diesel building generates a little over 10 grand a year in property taxes. I mean, to them, that's not a lot. To me, I mean, that's fourth of my income right now. So that's a lot of money. And then they're going to be using your services, your police, your fire, your everything. And it's like, wait a second. So who's going to make up the $10,000? Well, they're going to ask for a bond sooner or later. And, the school bond, again, not to dog the school all the time, but this older folks have literally want to sign the petition just so they don't have a bigger ask of a tax burden, because a lot of people who are in their 70s, 80s, and 90s are either single or disabled or old. They have their house paid off. I mean, my property value on my 3 properties, which I sound privileged having 3 properties that I I owe almost $3 million on my 3 properties together. I owe about $26,000 a year in property taxes. Well, that's a big nut to make. Now, imagine if I was, in my 80s. I mean, how am I supposed to make that? Oh, it's going to be paid off by then. Okay. Well, if you don't want to work 110 hours like I do, how are you supposed to make those? You got to sell them off, and then you got to rent them off. And then it's like pretty soon you have nothing to leave your kids that you spend 110 hours a week. You miss their whole childhood. It's crazy. And one of the biggest things I think we need to hit is property taxes. Mississippi stops making you pay them after 62. I mean, why can't we do something? Well, we know why, because Oregon likes to spend money that's not theirs. But that is such you don't take care of your elderly, dude. 50 years of working, why are you paying property taxes? I know that's switching gears. I know it's a big news subject, but it really is gross seeing a lot of these older folks. My neighbor down here lives in a trailer, and she was like freaking out the other day because, the 3% raise all the time. And then I had the tax assessors out at my house because I built a little shop out here in 2019. And they're like, oh yeah, we forgot to come out and do this. It's like, how do you forget to come out and tax me? Because, when I pulled the permit and everything, they noticed it. Well, then it took COVID hit. So I had no money. So I've been slowly putting doors on and whatnot. And they noticed that. So she was like, what are they doing out there? And so I told her, and I just do the sob story. Her husband died 8 years ago. I mean, she gets her Social Security, and then when your husband dies, you only get half of his Social Security. And it's like, so she just went from making double to 1.5, and their Social Security, not everyone makes $100,000 a year. So, they only, I think she told me she makes a little over $2,000 a month, which, dude, that's minimum wage, bro.
No, that's nothing.
It's crazy.
So let me read to you what was sent to me by Steve Jensen, who is our tax assessor. He says that the Pro Diesel building was sold from John Chambers to Louise Ledesma Revocable Family Trust for $750,000 in 2021, and then from Louise Ledesma Revocable Family Trust to Louise Ledesma Trust in 2023 for an undisclosed amount, but was calculated by CCAO to have a current unofficial value of $903,290, and they just bought it for $1.7 million.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to artificially inflate the property around there because they just paid a huge amount of it, and they stopped paying taxes on it because, like you said, all that money that they paid on taxes. So eventually they're going to have to come to everyone else and say, well, now that we're not paying our fair share, you have to pay a little bit more for all the services we provide. And yeah, it gets really ugly out there when this stuff starts happening. Urban renewal, people don't even realize how tax increment financing works. And, you're taking a little bit of money out of all the other taxing districts to put into urban renewal. And those other taxing districts, including the school, which is about 35 to 40% of the urban renewal, loses that money to urban renewal, pays for that debt. They lose annually almost $200 million a year out of the common school fund. And nobody talks about that.
Again, new to the table, bro. But I will tell you, here's one thing I have been digging, is there are ways that this can actually work an advantage to a city. So take, for instance, North Bend, the Ciccarelli's building, right? So North Bend's been buying up all this property too, the city using all this urban renewal program and grants and everything else. Well, so they bought Ciccarelli's. They're going to beautify it. I don't know how much they bought it for or how much they're spending on it, but they're going to rent it to North Point Brewing, right? So that's good. I mean, right? They're giving a job opportunity, bringing something new, a little, Carmen's going to have to up his beer game a little bit, that's great. Competition's good. However, at the end of it, the city's hoping to sell it to them. That way, it's good, because that way now they're going to get their tax revenue back. Plus, they've been collecting a lease payment back. I mean, I have to give it to North Bend, and maybe Coos Bay has the same trick up their sleeve, but pretty ingenious. I mean, the only thing is they use tax money or renewal program to buy it. So where's the benefit for me as a taxpayer? What if I'm a business owner that owns another brewery? I mean, do I really want the city putting competition in, right? It's just so difficult, because it's like, you can't have self-interest, but it's goofy. But I think North Bend has a really good thing, upgrading Main Street. I mean, because they're realizing that, Coos Bay wants to beautify Empire, but forget about 101, who has been paving the way for the last 100 years. So, and again, Empire needs love too. I'm not saying they don't. That whole strip absolutely could be a gold mine. Right. But in order to get people over there, you have to lead them through the golden path of 101 and treat them as such. And the 101 just looks like doo-doo. I mean, there's grass growing all over the place, like I said. So I don't know. Like you said, I'm learning, and it's interesting, and it's fun, and it's scary. Knocking on doors and people and telling them about this.
Knocking on doors is damn scary. I've done
81.
that for petitions myself, and I've gathered probably over 50 or 60,000 signatures in my lifetime.
You want a job?
No, I don't. But I'll come out and I'll sign it. I'll sign that petition, and I hope people watching are encouraged to go out and circulate this petition for you. So there are two things that I'm leading into right now. Tell us, where can people sign the petition, number one, and tell people how they can get involved and go and circulate the petition.
Yeah, absolutely. So on our Facebook, that's the easiest way to communicate with people. There is a list on there if you just type in Inglewood Petition, I'm sure it'll pop up, or even my name, Adam Palmer, and we'll, show you where it's at, or Inglewood Market. And there's lots of businesses that have taken it up. I mean, there's a huge list on there, and it's growing. Tomorrow I got to drop off another 20 clipboards to businesses. So far, we have over 32 businesses that wants clipboards. Nice. So it's insane. Again, and a lot of them are like, I didn't know this was happening. I heard it wasn't happening. And again, before I let out all the monkeys out of the cage and say, who said this? I have proof of that. It's not time for that yet, because, again, you want to, everyone, we're all living here. I mean, even whatever happens, at the end of the day, I still want to talk to you. I still want to do business. I still want to buy coffee. I still want to say, hey, remember that time? And even with these homeless people, and they're people. I mean, I know sometimes it's hard to admit it. I'm glad, old Doug Washington's gone now, but it's hard to admit that sometimes, and it's easy to forget. And I know that he's been fighting this battle, and he's just tired and he's worn out, but he's a very smart guy, and he's right in a lot of what he's saying. I just need to remember.
I wish he would get more involved politically, and it just sucks.
I agree.
It's a no-win proposition, and I've ran for office once, and I'll never run for office again, because I actually am more successful doing what I'm doing. I've done referendums where I've changed laws. I've done initiatives where I've changed laws. I've done referendum where I stopped bad laws. I've done recalls. Those are usually all a failure. And but if you're not representing the city and the city as a whole, then you can do a lot. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, because then you got to answer the second question. How can people get their petition?
Awesome. Again, we have copies there. So if you want to go door knocking with me, I did 81 today and 72 2 days ago. It's kind of fun. It's a little nerve wracking, but you really get to practice your charisma. And I get a lot more. Next time I get, a Mormon knocking on my door, I'm going to be a lot nicer to him, I tell you, because it's, you open the door and, half the people I've got slammed on, I've gotten cussed at. A lady told me that Devereux Center is doing God's work. And, I have to admit, I'm not doing the Devereux Center. So you got to give them some props where it's due. It's a hard job. So the petitions at many different businesses, if you want to sign, if you want copies to take on, they also have copies on the clipboards. So you're more than welcome. It's very important to note that if you live in the city of Coos Bay, that's the most important signature. Not the other people don't matter, but that's the one the city council will say, oh, these are important. So we have two different sheets there. One that says Coos Bay Coos Bay, the city of Coos Bay. And if you live in the city of Coos Bay, you need to sign that one. The other one that says the county, Coos Bay County, the county. And that's very important that if you live, in Libby, that's county. If you live in North Bend, that's still county. That counts. So it doesn't seem like it would, but it does. Even in Myrtle Point, we had 18 people just at the market today from Coquille and Myrtle Point come all the way to the market, introduce themselves, and sign. And it's like, again, I don't know how much weight that's going to hold, but at least people are like, okay, wait a second. We don't have anything to do with Inglewood, but this is not right. So let's do something. And it's kind of exciting. It's kind of cool just to see that people 20 miles away are caring. It's like, wow, this is really cool. So you can just follow Facebook's the easiest way, or stop by the market, stop by Heron, Napa, Tower Ford. There's so many great businesses that you just want to pump the brakes here and figure out a better way. Let's clean it up, let's move it eventually. I mean, it does need to be moved. Everyone
I gotta give props. Tower Ford is doing this.
Yeah, well, I talked to the Day family.
Cool.
I invited the Day family to the city council on Monday. They didn't show up. However, I stopped in today and spoke to the manager, and he said, yeah, we can do it. So how much they know about it, I don't know. But I've spent a lot of money at Tower Ford through the years, and there's
me too.
They've done all right. So there's some businesses that don't want any part of it. Les Schwab was a little scared to get involved, but Les Schwab does a lot of work with the schools. They support Marshfield and a lot of different things. And, one of those things on this petition is it's so close to schools, and it's going to affect 3A basketball. It's going to affect everything. Even people who don't live here, it's going to affect, because if you let the city do something like this and the Devereux Center, no matter how it ends up, it just paves the way for something else like COVID. I mean, let's not get there, but the more you allow, the easier it gets next time. And so again, this town hall meeting that we're going to hold, it's going to be good. And I'm trying to get the Devereux Center involved. I'm trying to get the mayor, the city, the CPAs, the lawyers I have, the community. I'm trying to get everyone there. And, the most important thing is we remain calm and we talk. And, communication goes a long way. So, I mean, that's basically all I have for you.
You don't cuss. You don't, sometimes I get loud and people accuse me of yelling. Okay. But I'm not really yelling. That's just my inside voice. It's really loud. And so here's a comment that I thought was kind of important because it's very true. Ashley Hicks, she used to be a city councilor for Roseburg. And so she's done a lot of work at the city council. She knows the level. It says your city has a 20-year plan, which they do, and they'll be in business longer than any of us will be alive. It's true. They've got these long-range plans, and I don't know if you've read those plans, but that's something. This is where I know, what they're doing with Empire, and just because they have plans doesn't mean it's going to happen. It just means that's what we planned in 1901 and 1921. We didn't get to do it, but we had some plans. And so I highly recommend people go check that out because that's also part of economic development. And this was a neat comment from John Smith. Highly doubt that's his real name, but God bless the folks from other parts of the county showing up to show support for stopping the Devereux bomb from destroying Inglewood. And I know John Smith lives over there in Inglewood, and he's already complained that he's had people more homeless than ever before walking up and down the street since the Coalbank Village went in. He says there are a lot more people over in that neighborhood who used to be over in Empire. So it's and then there's one lady who I think this should be seen. It says, why didn't everyone get excited and want it shut down when it was near me and Empire? All these petitions just because they want to move it to another area. I'm sick of them being in my backyard too. I can't argue with her. It's the management there. And if it was managed a little bit better, they probably wouldn't have so many complaints about it.
Well, I'll answer that one. So I've been asked that probably 20 or 30 times just today. Adam, you lived here for 10 years. I bought my first house when I was 19 on 242 South Morrison over there, and sold it to move to Inglewood. A couple of reasons. Number one, the Blue Heron. That's my business. So eat there, don't eat there. Be mad at me now, whatever. It was closer to Coos Bay. So I moved closer to Coos Bay. The Devereux Center was not as bad as it was 7 years ago is when I moved, but I lived there for 10 years in Empire on Morrison, right across the street, basically. And, would I have done this if I, was 36 years old, if it was this bad right across the street? If they were going to move, yeah, I absolutely would have. But back then there was no option to, move, because that wasn't talked about. There was no option to, the Devereux Center is just absolutely horrible, the worst thing. Because then they were just, it wasn't that bad. There was we had Teresa Mobile Hill, and we had, a couple other ones. And it wasn't like it is now. And again, it's not just a Devereux Center problem. They're coming from other places. There's some people I recognize from high school and college, and, but there's a lot of new faces here. And so, yeah, if I lived in Devereux Center, I would right now I'd be doing the same thing. And again, this petition is to stop the move. Then the next part is to clean it up, and the next part is to go after the state of Oregon, and that's a big apple. So dude, it's massive. I'm gonna be coming on your show you told me you were good at petitions and changing laws, so I'll be knocking on your door.
I'm all in it. We're gonna have you back on several different times, because I know this is a process, and when you do a process, this is something that you have to continue. So I should have put on this show part 1, and then we'll do part 2 in a month from now and keep this going. But I'll definitely be on Facebook, keeping the word out there, letting people know. Me and my wife will come by and sign it, and I'll encourage others to come by and sign it. I do want to show you this other comment, because I think this is important. It says, I analyzed petitions when I worked for a registrar voters in San Bernardino County, California. My feeling was, when the petition failed, it wasn't because they didn't have enough signatures, but the signature gatherers did an awful job. To me, in many instances, the signature gatherers deliberately killed the petition drive. The most organized petition was the marijuana people. They had their ducks in a row. Now, I don't think that, and this is, I don't think, when I've gathered signatures like on recalls, we thought the recalls were going to work, and there were a lot of signatures that were rejected, and I don't think it was deliberate. Yep. I think they just didn't know how to gather signatures, because there is a process. It's not the easiest thing to do, but you do have to keep an eye on it in case someone is trying to sabotage you. But, it's something you have to keep a look for. And John Smith, he says, ever since the little coal bank village opened, we've experienced more crime, gas siphoning, prowling, vandalism, and break-ins in Inglewood. Just imagine the effect of the entire rat's nest moving here. So, and Kathy Blunt says, thanks for the answer. I'm with you on trying to shut this place down entirely. Thanks for what you are doing for us. So.
Well, you can help. I haven't started the GoFundMe accounts, and I don't plan to. We've only spent I don't know, probably maybe $3,000 so far with talking with lawyers and CPAs, which I know is a lot of money, but it's not. And so we don't plan on asking for anything until we go up against Oregon. Then I'll be knocking on your doors with my hand out. But how you can help is literally tomorrow at 1:00 after I get done with brunch at the Heron, I'm going to go door knocking again. So if you want to meet me down at Inglewood Market, you're more than welcome to. Probably 1:15 takes me a little bit to get out of there. So if you want, you can help that way. That'd be awesome. Like I said, it's kind of fun. So
it is kind of fun. And before I get you out of here, because I think we've kind of hit the natural conclusion where we're going, is there anything else that you want to tell the listeners while we're still here?
Thanks. Who would have ever thought in a million years? I appreciate every one of you. And again, when we have this town hall meeting, probably not this week because everyone's busy. Everyone's schedule is just jam packed, it seems. But hopefully the week after, the Egyptian already said, "Yep, come on, rent it. We'll be serving popcorn and whatnot." And so I'll be meeting with some council members here the beginning of next week to hopefully set it up for the following week. And again, encourage everyone, Chris Castleman, everyone to show up. But just remember, we're there to solve this issue, not get mad. So I will personally escort you out if you're yelling and screaming and cussing. So that's about all I have for you guys. So let's try to work together and solve this best we can.
Well, thank you. I appreciate this. And Adam, we'll have you on again soon. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
All right. You too. Bye-bye. And there you go, Adam Palmer. He's the owner of the Blue Heron. No longer it's Wims. Wims owns something else, and I'll tell you, there's a lot of people who didn't like Wim. I thought he was a great guy. I like him. I've always enjoyed talking to Wim, and I thought he had a lot to offer. And a lot of times we didn't agree. No, we didn't agree on a lot of things, and that's okay. We don't have to agree. That's just the way life is. It's, I've been married for 27 years. You think I always agree with my wife? You think she always agrees with me? Yeah, right. That's not going to happen. There are a couple of people that I want to thank. 3H Tree Service. 3H Tree Service. Sorry, I pushed the wrong button there. 3H Tree Service. They are a full tree service resource. If you want to take out some of those trees, you got a problem with some of those trees that are giving you trouble, let me know. The 3H Tree Service is the only tree service in Coos County. I got to move it down a little. The only tree service in Coos County that has an arborist license from the Oregon Landscape Contractors Board. 3H strives to stay current in the industry standards to provide better service to our clients. And if you want to contact 3H Tree Service, there's the phone number right there, 541-294-1800. Or go check out some of those cool videos they got when they're 90 feet up in the air with a Marlboro in one hand and I think maybe it's a Camel, a cigarette in one hand and a chainsaw in the other, and they're taking out the top of a tree. I mean, it's like it's like the way men used to work, and it still works. It's nice. It's nice to see those people working. So definitely go check that out. 3H Tree Service. I want to thank Tom and Giggs. Go over and see Tim if you need your car fixed. You need a new muffler. You need an RC car, one of those remote control little cars. They make great gifts for the kids. I highly recommend you go over there and check that out. And I also, of course, want to thank Oregon Firearms Federation. Kevin Starrett, been a good friend of mine for many, many years. And it's the only no-compromise gun group in Oregon. The Oregon Firearms Federation. If you need to give money to somebody, you feel the need to give money to anybody, I would highly recommend that you give money the Oregon Firearms Federation. And I want to thank all of you who tuned in for this special Friday night. I think I might start doing this every Friday at 7. I don't know. You all can tell me and tell me what you think. I got a couple of comments. Great job. Adam is awesome. You thank you there, John Smith. Adam is awesome. And Ashley Hicks, he's giving me the prayer sign. I love the prayer sign. That's a beautiful thing. And of course, there's Brian Abel saying good job. Well, we tried to deliver. Hopefully the sound was okay. I hope the sound was okay. But Monday I've got another show. I think tentatively I've got candidate Paul Romero coming on the show. Yeah, Paul Romero. He's running for Senate District 1 against David Brock Smith. And I thought I'd bring him on, and we'll talk a little bit. So we'll see about that. And by the way, the sound quality on that interview that I did with Dr. Bob Zeidbach, he's the foremost expert on the Elliott Forest. There was a lot of echo in that sound. But we're going to redo that interview. I don't know when, but we should get it on. And guess what? I got a big surprise coming up. Monday morning, I've got an interview with Sheriff Mark Lamb, America's Sheriff. That's right, Mark Lamb. I've got him scheduled for Monday morning, and I'll play that a little bit later during Monday, during the day, and I'll post it on Facebook so you all can check it out. But he's in Arizona and Pinal County. He's just right up from the border, and he's running for the Senate. I hope he makes it. He'd make a great U.S. Senator. He's a constitutional sheriff, and you always see him on Fox, on America's First, on all the different good news shows, the few that are left, and it'd be good to see him. So until then, folks, carry on, Coos County, carry on.